Have you ever wondered why, even among people who love you, you feel like you don't belong anywhere? Why is there an invisible hole in your chest that no relationship can fill? Why do you feel like a stranger in your own life? Childhood emotional neglect is the invisible trauma. It's not the screams that echo in memory, but the silence. It's not the blows that hurt, but the absence of hugs. It's not the cruel words that wound, but the lack of words that should have been spoken. Jung taught us that the psyche holds on to every experience, especially those that shaped us when we were vulnerable. And neglect creates something specific in the soul, an orphaned inner child. Even when parents were physically present, this child learned that their existence was optional, that their feelings were inconvenient, that their presence was tolerated, never celebrated. Today you will discover the 8 signs this neglected child leaves in your adult life, creating that persistent feeling of not belonging. And more importantly, you will understand how this discovery is the first step to finally finding your place in the world. Because the truth is this: the child who was taught to hide is about to learn how to show up. Look into the mirror of your life. How many times have you felt invisible in groups even when cherished? How many times have you canceled your own plans to please others, fearing rejection? How many times have you pretended to be okay when you were falling apart inside? You know that feeling, don't you? The one of always being on the outside, watching life happen through a pane of glass, as if everyone else knew a secret about belonging that no one told you. While others seem to naturally fit in with their families, relationships, and groups, you carry a constant restlessness, a voice whispering that you shouldn't be there, that you're an imposition, that it would be better if you just disappeared. How many times have you self-effaced to try and belong? How many masks have you worn, trying to be what you imagined others wanted? How many parts of yourself have you hidden, thinking your authenticity was too much, too heavy, too inconvenient? You recognize these patterns because they stem from a specific wound, the wound of the child who learned their presence didn't matter, that their feelings were a bother, that love was something earned by being convenient, never by being real. Your true self, your deepest essence, has been trying to show you this truth for years, through restlessness, through loneliness in a crowd, through that constant hunger for something you can't name. While you search for belonging in others, your inner child cries out for recognition. While you try to fit into spaces not made for you, your soul asks to create its own home. Today you will stop looking outside for what can only be found within. You will recognize the signs this neglected child has left in your life, and you will begin the journey back home, to yourself. Emotional neglect is like a hunger for presence. The child needs to feel seen, heard, important to someone. They need to know their existence brings joy, not just tolerance. They need to feel that their feelings matter, that their words carry weight, that their presence makes a difference. When this doesn't happen, the psyche develops what Jung would call the inner orphan complex. It's a part of the personality organized around the fundamental belief that we are intrinsically inadequate, destined for abandonment, carrying an essential flaw that prevents us from belonging. Imagine a house where the lights are always off. The furniture is there, the structure exists, but there's no warmth, no life pulsing through the walls. Children in that house learn to walk on tiptoes, to not make noise, to not take up too much space. They learn they are temporary guests in their own family. This is the dynamic of neglect. It's not what was done to the child, but what wasn't done. It's not active traumas, but the absence of emotional nourishment. The child grows like a plant trying to bloom in arid soil, developing shallow roots because they learned they couldn't count on deep sustenance. The inner orphan carries a constant thirst for belonging, but also a deep distrust that it's possible. It's like being hungry and afraid of food at the same time. It's wanting connection and fleeing from it when it gets close. Now you will recognize how this dynamic has manifested in your life through 8 specific signs. Each sign is a language your psyche developed to cope with the original wound, and recognizing them is the first step to healing them. The first sign is emotional hypervigilance. You've become an expert reader of others' moods. You enter any environment and immediately scan people's emotions, trying to decipher if you're safe, if you're welcome, if you should stay or leave. This ability was born from the need for emotional survival. The neglected child learns that their safety depends on anticipating adults' emotional needs, being useful, and not causing problems. You pride yourself on being empathetic, on being able to read people, but the truth is, this hypervigilance is exhausting. You live in a constant state of alert, trying to adjust to others' moods to ensure acceptance. The second sign is a compulsive need to be useful. You only feel comfortable in relationships when you're giving something: help, advice, resources, time. Your self-esteem is tied to how much value you can add to others' lives. This happens because the neglected child learned that love is conditional, that presence is earned through performance, that belonging comes through usefulness, not essence. The third sign is extreme difficulty in setting boundaries. You say yes when you want to say no. You accept inadequate treatment because you're afraid that setting boundaries will mean being alone. You prefer to self-efface rather than risk conflict. Your inner child learned that their needs were inconvenient, that complaining meant being rejected, that it was better to accept crumbs of attention than to risk having nothing at all. The fourth sign is a fear of abandonment disguised as excessive independence. You pride yourself on not needing anyone, on being able to solve everything on your own. But this independence masks a deep terror of being left behind. You learned not to ask for help because requests went unanswered. You learned not to show vulnerability because vulnerability was ignored. Your independence is an armor protecting the child who still hopes to be chosen. The fifth sign is the persistent feeling of being an imposter. Even when you achieve something, you feel you don't deserve it. Even when you're included, you feel it was by mistake. Even when you're loved, you await the moment the person will discover who you really are and leave. This feeling stems from the silent message you received in childhood, that your presence was tolerated, not desired, that you constantly needed to prove your worth, but could never prove enough. The sixth sign is difficulty identifying and expressing your own needs. You can easily detect what others need, but when someone asks what you want, you draw a blank. Your needs have become so buried that you've lost access to them. The neglected child learns that their needs are inconvenient, so they stop feeling them, stop expressing them, stop believing they have a right to exist. The seventh sign is a tendency to self-sabotage when things get good. You unconsciously destroy healthy relationships, promising opportunities, moments of genuine happiness, as if your psyche is more comfortable with familiar pain than with unknown joy. This happens because happiness contradicts the internal narrative that you don't deserve good things. Your inner orphan is so accustomed to crumbs that abundance feels dangerous, unreal, temporary. The eighth and most devastating sign is constant existential loneliness. You can be surrounded by people who love you and still feel profoundly alone. It's as if there's an invisible wall between you and the world, a distance you can never fully cross. This loneliness stems from a disconnection from your own self. The neglected child learned to hide so deeply that they lost their way back home to themselves. And as long as you don't fully inhabit your own soul, true belonging remains impossible. Each of these signs is a language. Your psyche developed these strategies to survive in an environment where your essence wasn't nurtured. But what was a survival strategy in childhood has become a prison in adulthood. Recognizing these patterns isn't about blaming yourself or playing the victim. It's about understanding that you developed a specific emotional intelligence, created sophisticated mechanisms, and survived something that could have destroyed you. Now you can begin the journey back home. And this journey begins with a simple but revolutionary practice. Dialogue with your neglected child. Get a journal. Find a moment of silence. Close your eyes and imagine your inner child. That version of you who learned to hide, to not bother, to not take up space. Write a letter to this child. Tell them the words no one else did. I see you. Your presence brings me joy. Your feelings matter. You belong here. Then, with your non-dominant hand, let the child respond. Don't force it. Just allow the words to come. This child has a lot to tell you about what they need to finally feel at home. Practice true presence with yourself. When you feel that old feeling of not belonging, pause and ask, what does my inner child need right now? Perhaps it's validation. Perhaps it's boundaries. Perhaps it's simply permission to exist without performance. Start creating your own inner home. Identify what makes you feel genuinely nourished, genuinely seen, genuinely at home. It might be a morning ritual. It might be a sacred corner in your home. It might be a creative practice that expresses your essence. True belonging doesn't come from fitting into others' spaces. It comes from creating a space so authentic within yourself that you become a magnet for people and situations that recognize and celebrate who you truly are. You are no longer that child who had to hide to be tolerated. You are the adult who has the power to create the emotional home you always needed. You are the parent to your own inner child. You are the creator of your own belonging. Every time you choose authenticity instead of performance, you are healing the wound. Every time you set a healthy boundary, you are telling your inner child that they matter. Every time you ask for help when you need it, you are breaking the pattern of neglect. You belong here, not because you managed to mold yourself to fit in, but because your unique existence is a gift to the world. You belong because your presence brings something no one else can. You belong because the universe wouldn't be the same without you. The child who was taught to hide can now learn to shine. The child who was neglected can now be nurtured. The child who had no place can now create their own kingdom. Comment which of the 8 signs resonated with you the most. Which one made you feel seen, understood, less alone on this journey? Like if you felt the courage to look at your neglected child with compassion instead of judgment. Subscribe to continue this journey back home, to yourself, to the belonging that has always been yours by right. Because now you know, the place where you've always belonged is within yourself, and that place is waiting to be fully inhabited. The journey back home begins now.